Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Champions Chess Tour finale of 2023. This is an 8-player knockout style event with a $500,000 prize fund. We've got Magnus Carlsen, we have Hikaru Nakamura, we have some of the world's best players, we have a future star competing as well, Denis Lazovic, of course, and this is round number 5 and 6. This is the third recap of the event. I'm currently in Toronto. I do apologize for the interrogation lighting, the poor webcam, but that's the travel setup. My friends, we are witnessing something absolutely insane happening right before our eyes. Couple of crazy things happened in today's round robin portion of the event. I'm going to share some of these unbelievable moments with you, and then I'm going to give you a standings update. It's over. That's all I'll say for now, with a question mark, or maybe an exclamation point. My friends, it's round number 5, and we get a marquee matchup right away. It's Wesley So and it's Magnus Carlsen, and you will notice from the time on the clock already, it is Armageddon. They drew their 2 games. These guys are winning the event. This is round 5, and they're both 4-0. So Wesley and Magnus have won every single head-to-head matchup. And they just so happen to be playing in the 5th round of the event, which is super fun. And they drew their first 2 games. Magnus wagered 8 minutes. I think he wagered 8:53. So Magnus gets the black pieces, and remember, the Armageddon works in a way where if black makes a draw, then black wins. But to do that, black wagers a lot less time. Watch this game. Obviously, you will, because you're already here. So Magnus plays a Sicilian defense, and Wesley plays a sideline. Wesley stalls a center pawn move by developing both of his knights, and Magnus doesn't want to give Wesley any more time to sort of conjure something up, so he closes down the position like this, giving up, of course, some light squared equity, but it's okay because he's going to develop the rest of his piece. Okay, he stops Wesley from playing knight g5, making Wesley spend a little bit of time, d6, and then Wesley plays whatever the hell that move is. The idea, I believe, is either to go to f1 or to g4, ultimately to e3, and then to control that square in the center with d5. This is what happens, right? When you're playing in a setting where you have basically 6 minutes less than the opponent, but a draw counts as a win, goofy things are going to happen. Castles, knight f6, f4, e takes f4, bishop takes f4, and clearly Wesley has built up some good stuff over here, right? It's just looking like Wesley has some semblance of sort of, but there's really nothing there, right? I mean, you're not going to just attack Magnus so easily. So Magnus plays, Wesley brings a knight, right? And now, bishop to e6, and Magnus is just trying to trade a couple of pieces. In a perfect world, Magnus will get some sort of position that looks like this, active rook and everything, and, he's going to be quite happy. But instead of that, in this position, Wesley So plays the absolutely gangster move, knight to g5 check, which according to the game review is given a fat question mark. It is given a fat question mark because the computer does not even realize on the depth that it is standing that after pawn takes, bishop takes, this pin is surprisingly annoying. And white is going to build up some form of attack. And that is what Wesley does. He transfers his queen over. He stays patient. Magnus plays knight d7, a good move, securing his knight. But now Wesley plays the clearance sacrifice e5, looking to get the knight to e4. And he does. And then he gets his queen to the h4 square. And all of a sudden, Magnus is under severe pressure. Magnus now needs to strike back with f5, apparently. But he doesn't play that move. Doesn't play f5, doesn't play the computer's top choice. And so after f5, according to the computer, he might have been in the balance, but he takes the bishop. Now that move is given a bit of a question mark because now boom! And Wesley is opening up the position here against the king while also being able to take back the material. Wesley invested material for a big attack. Now he's going to get the big attack and the material back. Bishop d5. Wesley plays knight f6. Knight takes f6. And now, in this position, Wesley So, a man after my own heart. I shook his hand downstairs. Very pleasant as always. We interviewed him in the post-game panel. Instead of taking with the bishop, which would be a huge mistake because white should not be trading the pieces, Wesley So sacrifices the rook. Rook takes f6. The idea of rook takes f6 is so savage. The idea of rook takes f6 is that after bishop takes f6, you don't take back, but you play double check. King g6, queen h6, king f5, rook to f1, king to e6, rook f6, king d7, rook takes, pawn takes, and you emerge with a powerful attack. Not a completely winning position, but a powerful attack. But Magnus was disturbed by that development. Magnus was disturbed by the fact that bishop takes f6 probably doesn't work, so he can't do it, and instead he sacrificed the queen. And it's much easier to sit here with Stockfish pointing out these symbols, but apparently he actually could have taken, walked his king to d7, and prayed. But instead, the prayers of Wesley So were answered, because now he's up a queen. And not only is he up a queen, he is brutally prying the king's defenses apart. He plays king f2, a beautiful move, looking to get his rook here, looking to get his king, to hunt black's king out into the open. And that is exactly what he did. That is exactly what he did. And ladies and gentlemen, it took just over 40 moves. But Wesley So completely and totally, well, it was over in like 30-ish moves. Completely and totally, dominantly and convincingly took down Magnus Carlsen. Magnus played rook c2 and simply resigned because queen f6 is coming. He's going to lose the pawn on g5, and the pawns are going to promote. Wesley So just beat Magnus. It is over. Wesley So's 5-0, damn it. What is going on? This man is 5-0, and he just played an unbelievable game. He played knight to g5 check. I am offended that this bozo low-depth game review thinks that this is a mistake. For all intents and purposes, a direct assault on Magnus Carlsen's king, a knight for one pawn. Sometimes we see two. One. Crazy. Wesley wins. Now, that was just the beginning of an absolutely absurd day of chess. Fabiano Caruana versus Denis Lazovic. We know Lazovic is solid. He's drawing a lot of these guys. Fabi goes for a nice and solid Italian. Remember, this is round number 5. Every match counts for Fabiano because he is still looking to qualify. Dennis trying to play a bit aggressively, but Fabi doing a nice job there, creating a barrier around his king. And I think the experience here in the e4, e5 positions is going to be huge. Look at Fabi avoiding the trade of queens. We have all these little symbols here that, you know, the engine's going to throw out. And it's a very, very patient game. A lot of maneuvering in this one, which is why I'm sort of clicking through it, because I'd rather focus on some of the more open, kind of exciting games of action. The position got locked. Fabiano started expanding, finally using a little bit of that queenside space advantage, and Lazovic trying to come out with c5, but he just waited a little bit too long. And by the time he opened up the position, Fabi immediately starts punishing him, building up the pressure on that. Oh, look at that diagonal seizing rook c1. And even though he's trading pieces, he's still completely winning because black just can't defend himself. Fabiano slowly, steadily wins that pawn on h6. Beautiful combination. Fabiano used the, I was going to say, combination of play of the queen side and the king side with a center locked like that, disallowing black from easy piece communication. It was just a slow and steady game. It was youth versus experience. It was a man that has played for the World Championship, who has played many titles, and he goes to an endgame. And I mean, just a flawless, patient game from Fabiano to take down the youngster. He wins a very important match for his overall standings in this event. In the first round of the day, it was the battle of the French dudes. Well, one is French and one is recently French, and that is Ali Reza versus MVL. French number 1, number 2, and what more iconic opening to play between two Frenchmen than a French? Gotham, you're so clever. That's my really borderline offensive French accent. I met Maxime, by the way, super nice guy. And he explained to me something about an endgame from a different position, which I will not spoil to you right now. It's a very sharp game. Looks like black is about to lose some material here, but this is all theory, as you can see from the gentlemen spending their time. Black grabs a knight, white grabs a bishop, queen a5, and we go for this endgame. And white is better here. White is better here because he has the two bishops. That's the first thing that we look at. We look at the bishop pair, but also look at black's pieces. Like, how are these pieces going to get out? If you told black he could not touch his f or b pawns, he would resign. He would literally resign the game right now. Because he needs to use those pawns to try to fight back against white's bind. But the good thing about Maxime's position, he doesn't really care. Like, traditional knowledge, wisdom would tell you that these doubled pawns like might not be good or something like that. Yeah, but he's gonna just patiently wait, bide his time. Maybe he's gonna put pressure on this side. Maybe he's gonna take and put the knight there and grab a pawn. At some point, white's not just gonna have a symbolic positional advantage. He's gonna have a tangible advantage of 1 or 2 pawns, right? He's just gonna be very slow. Computer doesn't like this move, but the advantage drops by, like, 1. White is still convincingly better. Slow and patient game. And Ali Reza just runs out of things to do. I mean, the computer is trying to tell Ali Reza to play moves like this or g6 and basically sit and wait. Instead, he tries to make something happen. He's like, all right, I'm going to unclog my pores a little bit. You've seen those videos, the pimple popping? Oh, first of all, it's disgusting, but it's very satisfying. Alireza decides, you know what? I need to pop this pimple. Let me open up the position a little bit. But Maxime, just like Alireza, playing, and look at the time. 7 minutes up for Maxime in this format. It's just not good enough. And he improves his position on all three sides of the board. Actually, it's Alireza who's trying to make something happen and does. And Maxime loses a little bit of control here, as you can see. But watch the clock. That's the most important thing. I mean, Maxime basically had he was calling the shots from start to finish. And Alireza is now down below a minute, and it's just going to be too hard to defend the position. Alireza did a nice job fighting back. Maxime might have had a better way to capitalize on the advantage, transforming it from symbolic to actionable. But what's going to happen is something that is going to make fans of Alireza Firouzja a little bit bummed out, as Maxime just stockpiles the pressure, and ultimately it gets to Alireza. 15 seconds on the clock, just not going to cut it. Already the advantage has been rebuilt because of the weakness, the split pawns, the F5, the pin, right? The pieces being overloaded here, all defending each other, and he just, beautiful move. Rook E6, that beautiful, brilliant symbol. Rook E6, there is Rook C6, and if you take this way, it's discovered check, and I'm going to pick up a couple of pawns, and that's what happens. And Maxime throws in a check for good measure to force the king, and takes that pawn because the A pawn's not going anywhere. He will come back for it at some moment, just a matter of time. The worst part here is the two passed pawns walking directly to the king, and the bishop from a distance is a sniper. And it was a long game, but it was a very convincing one from Maxime. I mean, he did lose his advantage if you stare at Stockfish the whole time, but the bishop versus knight was proven, and he does take down his countryman. A very rough tournament for Alireza Firouzja, who just simply cannot win a match. I mean, he almost started the tournament 2-0, and at the beginning of the event, I did say in a video that I did for chess.com for predictions, I said, Alireza is the biggest wild card in the event. Like, I mean, if he could show up and completely dominate. I was very happy, actually. Magnus did an interview where he echoed what I said. He said Alireza is a huge wild card, and he thinks his ceiling is ridiculously high, but he's just not hitting it. He wasn't, like, echoing what I said, but he said something very similar. And now another massive matchup. This is the matchup between Hikaru Nakamura and Nodirbek Abdusattorov. Hikaru has to win. He is in the bottom of the standings. He is nearly falling out of the event. And we have to, I mean, Hikaru's just got to do something. He's had a very shaky event. A goofy line here as Hikaru plays a Kalashnikov Sicilian, which, by the way, is just the best name for an opening, like, period. This really weird setup chosen from Nodirbek, who then proceeds to get a losing position in 8 moves. He's losing on the 8th move of the opening. He should have played bishop e2 if he was going to develop his bishop. But all of a sudden, like, for example, if white castles here to try to defend this, queen h4 is game over. Like, you just straight up lose the game, because if you play h3, I take, and then I take the knight. Nodirbek is literally losing in 8 moves, which takes a lot of effort when the average rating of the two opponents is 27-29 FIDE. So he just has to lose a pawn. Straight up just losing a pawn. Now here, apparently, Hikaru has to go queen b6, anchor the knight, pressure the queen side. He doesn't. He backs up, which is, again, like, something's off. Something's off about Hikaru. He's not feeling it. You know, like, you ever go to a Hikaru stream and he's mad at himself for, like, playing a little too slowly? He's not feeling it. Like, the moves just, they're not, queen b6, of course, just queen b6. But something's not there. And before you know it, just watch the evaluation. Like, Nodirbek got a lost position. It's equal. The position is equal despite Nodirbek being a pawn down. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because this wall is going to go this way. Hikaru's got a castle. He's got no choice. He can't put his king in the center. I got a bazooka staring at that pawn. He can't put the king there. He can't castle the other way because he got no rook. Newsflash, you can't castle if it's a ghost rook. So Hikaru does his best, and he does end up castling. But Nodirbek's just attacking him. And the game completely spins out of control. They both have they both have 1 minute. They have 2 minutes there. They have 1 minute there. Hikaru sacks his rook, which is not designed necessarily to checkmate white, as much as it is to open up his king for long-term play. But then he makes a slight inaccuracy. Again, I'm not nitpicking. Like, I'm not sitting here going, well, it says it's a question mark. It's just like the flow, right? The flow is not necessarily there. And now, total pandemonium. Both guys less than a minute. Scrambling. If Hikaru gets to an endgame, he probably wins, because of white's ruined structure. So he's going to grab as many pawns as possible. Apparently he's losing. Like, apparently if white plays rook f1 and then tries to, like, go for some attack, he's winning, but it's chaos. They both have less than 30 seconds. White's king is wide open. Nodirbek, oh my goodness, and e2. ends the game because you threaten this and you threaten to promote. Out of nowhere, Hikaru emerges as the winner. That is a massive win for him. That is a huge win. He needs this win. But I have horrible news for Hikaru fans because he lost the next game. Hikaru won with black, which is a godsend. I mean, it's like slightly overblown, but winning with black is incredible because when you play white, you just do your thing. I mean, you just play solidly. And Hikaru was winning the next game, and then he lost. So they go to an Armageddon, and Hikaru bids, I believe, below 9 minutes. If not below 9 minutes, I think he bid 9:30. We'll see it in a second. And he was very unhappy. I mean, like they're making the players do interviews to discuss their Armageddon bids, and Hikaru bid 9:05. So Hikaru loses with white after winning with black, and now he has to hold the Armageddon, right? Okay, that was nuts. That first game was nuts. We have another Kalashnikov. We have a same line as last time, this time in a shocking turn of events. 2,300, not 2,700 rated Nodirbek Abdusattorov does not lose the game the same way as previous because now there is obviously a slight difference here. If black plays knight g4 in this position, then there's queen takes g4. So the difference is that last time there was a pawn on d6, which is a slight, subtle change. This time d5 and knight b4. So Hikaru sacrifices a pawn, but he wins it back. And again, second time in a row, no problems in the opening whatsoever. Look at the time. Look at the time. 2 minutes. 2 minute difference. Started as 6. So Nodirbek spends a huge amount of time and is just like, all right, I just gotta play chess. Like I just gotta play chess. Right? Look at Nodirbek's down on time. I mean, Hikaru's openings have been solid. He has really caught a lot of guys off guard, and he just can't lose this position, right? Okay, rook and bishop, 5 pawns. Rook and knight, 5 pawns. Rook d8. We gonna go to a rook endgame? No rook endgame. Now we have an offer to go to a rook endgame, and we do. Excuse me, not a rook endgame. We have an offer to go to a minor piece endgame, knight versus bishop. So Hikaru's like, all right, I mean, he can't beat me. I got knight and 6 pawns. What's he gonna do? Now, the way you win a position like this is you bribe your opponent, and if that doesn't work because they're crypto billionaires, then you then you try to use your pawn majority. Preferably, you create an outside pass pawn. A and H pawns are gods in these types of positions. The center pawns can be caught much faster, and you try to outflank with your king. Like a huge mistake here by black would be to play g6 h5. If you can't put the pawn on f6, like f5 h5, you don't want to create infiltratable holes in your position. f6, and obviously, as we can see, both guys are trying to, claim a little bit of pawn equity, right? There's f5. Hikaru's trying to take some space, and he gets a pass pawn. So Hikaru now has a pass pawn, right? King e7, but white controls a lot of the tempo, and very nice idea there, by the way. Knight takes h4 would have trapped the knight. So it would have gotten you to an endgame like this, where the bishop dominates the knight. I'm not sure that's really what you want, considering you could go king f6, maybe. But instead of that, Hikaru plays knight d6, and we have the following position. And then a couple moves later, we have the following position. Now, that's a huge... a5 is a massive commitment. I mean, clearly, Hikaru didn't like something about what could happen, so he gives Nodirbek the pass c-pawn. I talked about winning one of these pawns for white would essentially win the game because the pawns are flank pawns. And we have a scramble. Knight e8, king c4, knight f6, bishop f3, and Hikaru throws the e-pawn forward to go get that pawn. But somehow, he's not winning the pawn anymore because the pawn escapes. And now, if you go after the pawn with knight d8, I bring my king, and by the time you take the pawn, you actually lose the king and pawn endgame because I outflank you and I win that pawn, then I win that pawn, and then I promote. This is unbelievable. And in the scramble, we have like 6 or 7 evaluation changes. All of a sudden, Hikaru is dominated because his knight is stuck defending the pawn, and it's got nowhere to go. And if Nodirbek repositions the bishop the right way, oh my god. And apparently now it's a draw. Like apparently here, if Hikaru had gone king f6 is apparently, I mean, it's not findable. We scramble, we play 72 moves, and Hikaru resigns. After winning with black in the first game, Hikaru loses 2 games, and he loses to Nodirbek Abdusattorov. Hikaru is now 1-4. He has won 1 match, and he has lost 4 matches. Unbelievable. Just completely... it's insane. I mean, I have no words. because he looked so strong in that first game. It was a crazy game, but it was exactly what Hikaru needed. 2 days in a row, he starts with a win. He beats Alireza in that first game yesterday. And then, okay, he loses to Magnus, but Magnus is Magnus. I mean, there's not much you can do there. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. What more to say? Which takes us to round number 6. Now, remember how this works. I'm going to tell you about the standings. There's 8 players. And it's a round robin, so you can score 7 points. You can win each match. The top 2 finishers make it automatically to the semifinals. The bottom 2 are gone. You got to avoid bottom 2. If you get into survival stage, 3, 4, 5, 6, those players play each other for the last 2 semifinal spots. It's not over. Now, Magnus needs to bounce back against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Maxime just caught momentum, just beat Alireza. It's a huge win. Maxime defending with the black pieces, right? We go for a little Neo-Catalan. Magnus really delaying the Catalan, not playing the move D4. So Maxime says, okay, I will. D4. Now, Maxime's not a specialist in these positions. Frankly, Maxime is not a specialist in most positions with the bishop on E7, and I just saw him downstairs. That's not meant as an insult. It's just that, and I mean, these guys can play any opening, right? But my point is that if you look at a history of games, like Maxime puts the bishop on G7, he'd be doing that a lot. So clearly, you know, this is like, you know, he's gonna have to come prepared for something like this. And apparently here already, the better move was C5. Apparently. The way Magnus does this now is he gets the whole diagonal. MVL tries to hold the knight there. So Magnus plays knight C3 because he wants to play knight A4 and then he wants to, you know, seize the center. He also wants to play knight E5 because all of a sudden Black's piece has got no targets. Black's pieces are like, imagine you have a leak in the wall and you plug it with like a 5-carat diamond or like an expensive piece. Let's say you take your PS5 or your NVIDIA graphics card and you like, what are you even doing, right? So that is essentially what is happening right here. These pieces are about to get nicely pried out of there and they got nowhere to go. And now Magnus takes a little bit more space with F4, gets his king off the diagonal. And I feel like nothing has happened in Maxime's position in like 6 moves. Knight takes D4. Look at Maxime's position. Notice how nothing is really going on. And like Queen E7, nothing is going on. So Magnus says, well, I've made maximum improvements with my knights and bishops. So now I can actually create a same side pawn attack because I've just had such a head start. Look at me. Look at me. Hands in the air like it's good to be alive. And I'm a famous rapper. People in the past are all crookedy. Any of you know the Flowbots? I can ride my bike with no handlebars. Talk about a throwback song. Bet you did not have that on your Gotham bingo card of things that I mention in my videos. Normally it's sports, right? Anyway, I mean, it's like an avalanche now. Again, look at Black's pawns and back row of pieces. I mean, Maxime is like playing bingo with these pieces. He's struggling. Look at that. Look, nothing has happened. The bishop, the rook, the bishop, the queen, the rook. It's just nothing you can do. All of a sudden, you're still moving the same pieces. You're still moving the same pieces. And now Magnus plays knight F6. And as I said, the game is just over. I mean, that was crazy. And look, I mean, Maxime is one of the best players in the world, but I am just saying, like, familiarity matters. Familiarity matters in a certain position. It's just what I think. It's my opinion. I'm here to give you my opinion. I just feel like you play some imbalanced position against Magnus, he's going to try to take advantage in various ways because maybe he's slightly more experienced. And, yeah, just G takes F6, knight G5, Queen H6, just too many threats here. And there it is. Queen H7 just takes back the knight. And, you can't get more convincing than that. Let's talk about a bounce back win for Magnus. He ends the day with 5 points out of 6. He is still at the top of the leaderboard. Alireza Ferrugia took down Denis Lazovic. That was 3 draws in the match, so they drew both games. Again, Denis just a beast. Can Wesley So end the day 6 out of 6? How about that for a question? This is the Armageddon. So they drew their first 2 games. Wesley bids 930. 930 something, and then plays the Queen's Gambit, accepted. Now, if you want to win against this with white, you generally have to play E4. But maybe there's a whole lot of theory there that these guys don't really want to touch. So instead we have just a classical line. This is a very solid line, but knight C6 is a sideline. A6 is generally the move. Now, Wesley plays it immediately after, but he's kind of inviting various things to happen in the center. Nurtsjebek here allows B5, tries to take advantage with A4, but Wesley clearly the experienced player and immediately starts being like, yo, what is Neuderbek doing? Because he's just going to go here, castle, and also grab a bishop on his way out. And if he doesn't grab the bishop, he's going to play c4 and maybe b3 and mummify the bishop, rook c8. Like, this bishop completely cooks this bishop in a competition, right? Rook c8, there it is. And I mean, Neuderbek's just going for an attack. And Wesley's like, bro, like, okay, you threaten mate, and if I castle, you mate me on that square, but what about this? And if you just, for a brief moment, look at this position, it's actually crazy. Like, it's the equivalent of driving a car into a wall for white. Like, there is nothing here, and Wesley's like a dojo master. He's just going to take all of that and be like, that's all you got? Boom! Like, Black's position is perfectly equipped for a counterattack. He uses his H-pawn. He doesn't even care that he's overextending, because how is White going to guard the knight? He has to go here. So now Wesley, whoop, boink, forces an overextension, so now White has to defend himself like that. Oops. And who's guarding the bishop? It's just insane. I mean, it completely and comprehensively refuted the White position. I mean, Armageddon is just weird, you know? And then he plays d3. This dude is threatening to trap this bishop. It's the saddest set of bishops I've ever seen. It's like the king and the queen left. And these are like the little kids that want to sit in the chairs. They're like, oh, I want a chance to sit in the throne. I don't know why they sound like British kids, but that's just my default accent, you know? And then Wesley sacks his rook just for... You can't take, because then the pawn traps the rook. Neuderbek does take and then gives up, but just takes and just knight. Bro, this dude just sacked the second rook. There's just a rook. It looks like Wesley hung the rook in the corner, which you might do, but you can't take that. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You're just gonna lose. Black will play queen d2, threaten mate, and it's like insane. White has all these pieces, but they're not doing anything. So bishop takes h8 is not possible. He goes queen f2, and I mean, Wesley just threatening to promote and just has to defend himself. And Wesley likes to do this thing where he just makes draws. He promotes to a rook because he's hilarious and he could do what he wants. And Wesley likes to do this thing in the Armageddon where he makes draws out of totally winning positions. So despite it being -7, he repeats moves. Yeah. Like, he's up 3 pawns, but a draw is a win, so he just... and Wesley 6-0. Wesley 6-0. He's won every match. It's just insane. And big matchup. Final matchup of the day that I have for you. Hikaru looking to get a win versus Fabiano Caruana. It's Armageddon. So these guys drew their 2 games. Hikaru now with the black pieces. Again, he has had a good run. Like, he has his score. Like, he's playing close games, but he's got to get the job done. It's a Rossalimo Sicilian. It is a slight sideline where Black plays d6, bishop d7. We get a very close position. And from the opening, it looked a little dicey. Hikaru started expanding on the queen side. Like I'm talking really expanding on the queen side. And then he was playing knight d7, trying to provoke Fabi into spending some time and going forward. Fabi played bishop e3, still up 5.5 minutes on the clock. Take, queen c7. Then Hikaru played a4, and he started kind of shutting down the queen side a little bit. Right? Knight b6, e6. Okay, apparently a step in the wrong direction, but now Fabi takes a step in the wrong direction as well. Fabi apparently, instead of knight to g5, should have like opened up the position and just grabbed the pawn. Now, for whatever reason, he really didn't like this. He must have felt a little bit uneasy with the cannon kind of pointed the opposite way, but then it was knight g5. The knight went back to d8 and c4. And for the second game in a row, Hikaru's taking over in the Armageddon. Now, he's still down 4 minutes, 5 minutes, almost 6, actually. I can't do math. But for the second Armageddon in a row, the comeback of Hikaru is well and good, and it is alive. Knight f3, e5, bishop e3, and Hikaru is just doing great. Look at this position. And the only thing that Fabi still has going for him is he has done a good job preserving the clock advantage. But this is a great position for Black. Fabi, I mean, Hikaru's going to make a comeback. Rook e2, Black is better. Rook e2, Black is better. apparently Hikaru can already begin queen a5, knight f6, targeting this, hitting this, maybe knight h5, maybe knight f4, maybe knight f6, d5 if you're feeling spicy in the future, taking d5. Okay, he plays rook a8, he takes the file. Maybe he plays h4 because he doesn't really know what to do. I mean, probably does, but, you know, Hikaru attacks the pawn, queen e1, completely taking over the game. Now queen a5. I don't know why Hikaru did not play queen a5. I mean, I'm not saying that Fabiano would have lost this pawn. I'm just saying as a human, this to me looks like a very natural move. And after bishop d2, maybe you just keep coming down. Maybe you play queen a7, hit the pawn. I mean, obviously, it's a lot easier for us to sit here. But in this position, Hikaru plays knight f4, which wins the bishop in the sense that you get rid of white's bishop pair. But suddenly, all the pressure is off of white's center. And it is white who suddenly has the idea to go here, launch the bishop at black's position. Knight f4 is a massive decision. And Hikaru plays it because he doesn't have a huge amount of time. He's got to play fast. And Fabi gets the pawn. Hikaru gets this pawn. It's a very tense game. So much is hanging on this game. Hikaru loses the pawn on d6. So he's now down a pawn, and here comes Fabiano. Hikaru's looking for a rook trade, but after takes king h2, only one man is attacking the other, and it's Fabiano Caruana, who gets the queen out of the way and just realizes, yo, I have a pass pawn too, and I have a pawn that could open up Hikaru's king. Let me just guard everything, and at some point my pawns are going to go, not just one, but both. And my friends, I regret to inform the Hikaru fans out there, but the attack crashed through, and on the 52nd move of this game, Hikaru resigned. Hikaru resigned. Fabiano won his match. And Hikaru lost both matches today. And these are your standings after 6 rounds. Wesley So is perfect. Magnus is with 5 out of 6. They are both, I think, mathematically guaranteed to make the semifinals. If Magnus wins but Wesley loses the final day of the round robin, Wesley wins the head-to-head because he won the head-to-head match. If Fabiano wins but Magnus loses, I think Magnus won the head-to-head. So the question tomorrow is, it is Hikaru versus Lazovic. Hikaru must win, and Ali Reza, who is playing Magnus, must lose. And I'm not sure what happens in the matchup of Maxime, but I think if Maxime ties with Hikaru, he knocks him out because of head-to-head, because he beat him in a match. This is crazy. This is shocking. I mean, I'm flat. I don't even know what this. I hope everything is all right with Hikaru. This is a completely uncharacteristic performance, and I mean, I guess it happens. I guess it happens. I'm a fan of Hikaru. Obviously, I'm biased. I would much rather see him in top 6 and top 2 than where he is, and it's shocking. But credit to Wesley So, who is just an absolute killer right now. Not all of you agree with me about Hikaru. Some people root for and against others, but yeah, if Magnus Carlsen doesn't show up tomorrow against Alireza Firouzja, then Hikaru's match doesn't matter. But I think Magnus is required by contract to show up. So crazy, just absolutely insane, completely insane. What to say? I will see you all tomorrow, and tomorrow we will see who makes the top 4. Tomorrow we have the last round of the round robin, and then we have the survival stage. Hope you enjoyed the recap. Get out of here.